Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion today about health tech trends in 2022. What should we prepare for? We have a fantastic group of speakers today, but before introducing them, please remember to mute microphones. You will be able to ask questions at the end of the discussion, and you can also use the Slack channel to leave your questions, comments, and additional viewpoints for the community to discuss in the meantime. So feel free to be active, share your thoughts. My name is Balint Bene, CEO of Bene Studio, and I will be the moderator today. My company does health tech mobile and web application development and design. My goal with this network is to help product companies solve their technological challenges. Our panelists today are Tobias Silberzahn, partner at McKinsey Company, Rebecca Gwilt, partner at Nixon Gwilt Law, and Joshua Goldberg, partner at Nath, Goldberg Meyer. And in this panel discussion, first, I would like to ask you, just introduce yourself in brief. Who are you and how do you contribute to the health tech ecosystem? Tobias, could you start?
Thank you, Balint, for the invitation. Great to be here and great to do this together. I'm Tobias. I'm originally a biochemist, immunologist, cancer researcher, and now 13 years with McKinsey. A lot of my work is in the triangle between young digital health companies, established healthcare companies, and ministries of health trying to digitize their health systems. With a particular focus on health tech business building, right, which can be helping young companies scale or helping incumbents build new businesses. And as part of that, I contribute to the community by leading what we call the HealthTech Network, which is a friendly CEO founder community of a bit more than 1,000 companies, where we try to create a bit of a network across Europe, Asia, and the US, and helping connect the dots.
Wow, it's really exciting, Tobias. And I would like to ask Rebecca to introduce yourself and how you connected to the health tech ecosystem.
Thank you, Bene, and thanks for inviting me. I am the co-founder and partner of Nixon Gwilt Law, which is a healthcare innovation law firm in the US. I work with innovative healthcare companies to provide legal, regulatory, and business guidance, focused primarily on digital health, telehealth, health tech, RPM, mobile health, predictive analytics, and value-based care, some other ones sprinkled in there. I'm also an investor in early stage companies, a mentor for startups in the healthcare space, and I'm very passionate about supporting female and underestimated founders. And last, I'm a mother of 3 and a karaoke lover.
Wow, what a diverse background. It's so exciting. And Josh, could you introduce yourself and how you contribute to the health tech ecosystem?
Absolutely. Thank you, Balint. It's nice to be here with you all again. I'm Josh Goldberg. I'm a patent attorney at Nath, Goldberg Meyer. We are an intellectual property boutique law firm here in the US. We're actually not terribly far from where Rebecca is, such that location matters anymore. My past life, I was a chemical engineer and I did drug delivery composition work, which meant I worked for a small company that had big pharma come to us with their new actives and say, figure out how to put it in a tablet or a capsule, anything, code it, whatever it is. I did that for a while. Now what I do is I give officers at health tech companies a leg up by making sure they know all their relevant products are protected and that they have the peace of mind they won't face competition in the marketplace.
Oh, thanks. It's really great having such a diverse and expert panel together, and I can't wait to jump into the middle of our topic. How do you summarize the health tech trends of the previous year? Rebecca, would you mind to start with your approach, your experiences?
Sure. So I'm gonna touch on 3 different things and then happy to sort of get into it. One is, of course, the continued increase in adoption of telehealth and RPM and lots of new entrants into that market, especially in the mental health space. I think 2021 was a big year highlighting both the need for mental health access for so many and sort of the companies that are filling that gap. In addition to the creation of lots and lots of new virtual clinician networks. That's just one. Second would be all of the non-healthcare players entering the market. So we saw Amazon launch their healthcare company. We saw Verizon acquire Blue Jeans with the express intent to get into the digital health space. Microsoft acquiring Nuance, that is a voice recognition software with the express intent to use it in healthcare. And then the last would be the continued growth of remote monitoring in particular that's bringing virtual acute and chronic care management into patient homes. We saw lots of companies in the mobile phlebotomy, mobile radiology space, bringing their services into the home. Certainly all of us have experienced drug, pharmacy, mail order pharmacy increase. And that's just signaling a big increase around patient engagement, home-based care, patient-centered care, which I think, and we'll talk about it later, of course, is just another step on the progression to much more care being delivered exactly where the patient would like it to be.
It seems you experienced a lot of progress last year. And Tobias, what could you add to these trends or highlights?
I very much agree with Rebecca. If I sort of switch a bit geographies and look at it a bit more from a European perspective, right, I would say that there were three things, right? Of course, number one, also investment picking up in health tech in 21, also in Europe. Then the second big topic in many countries was then the telemedicine uplift, in many parts catalyzed by COVID, right? In the e-health monitor for Germany, we looked at the numbers that their telemedicine increased 900-fold, right? So in that sense, that area got sort of a bit of a spike. And then the other area that was a big discussion topic in 2021 was digital therapeutics, right? Where then Germany had put together that regulatory combined reimbursement process, where then now France is interested in setting up something similar, and then there are discussions happening on European level, right? How could digital therapeutics be assessed across Europe? So that was certainly for me one of the big topics.
Oh, thanks for these highlights. Telemedicine is definitely in the middle of a big change during this COVID period. Josh, what can you see from your practice?
Well,
what happened last year?
Absolutely, and I echo the sentiments that my co-panelists expressed, especially Rebecca, talking about the increased consolidation and acquisitions in the industry. I've been seeing a tremendous amount of acquisitions. I think before COVID, there was already a trend for big pharmaceutical companies, big tech, who wanted to get into health tech space to not necessarily do their own R&D, but to look to smaller companies to develop new products, new treatments, new services, and then acquire them once they reached a certain point. And I think that has only accelerated over the past year. The other thing that I've noticed is where 2020, everybody seemed to stop on a dime and focus all their efforts on COVID. And it seemed to me that most other health efforts either were put on pause or were given short shrift. There really wasn't a lot of work or as much work being done in other areas as there had been in years past. Last year, I think that really changed. And I think that there was a lot more progress on a lot more areas than there would be in a typical year because everybody had to fit 2 years worth of research and development into one.
Wow, so we had to jump a big into the future during this time. So it's really interesting what you both highlighted about the consolidation. And what do you think? It's something which happened last year, and and now we have a new setup within the industry, or rather you can see it as a trend, and we will facing even more acquisitions in the new year. Rebecca, what do you think about it?
So if the question is, can we expect to see the acquisition trend increase? My guess, my educated guess would be yes. What we're seeing on the customer side now is hospitals, health systems, and payers, even life sciences companies, sort of overwhelmed by the menu of different sort of one-off individual digital health solutions that they're seeing. And they're going to eventually become so overwhelmed that they only start to evaluate solutions that have sort of a consolidated set of services. And so, these players that already have traction, customer traction in the sort of large employer, hospital, health system, payer space, I think they're going to be starting to acquire sort of different components of a digital solution that their customers are looking for to incorporate them into their offering.
So from your perspective, you can see clearly that there will be even more acquisitions. And Josh, what's your guess for 2022?
Well, I agree with Rebecca that we are going to see more acquisitions. I think going back to what Rebecca noticed for 2021, the genie is out of the bottle as far as telehealth, personalized medicine, all of those things. We've been talking about it for 5, 6, 7 years now. I feel like it's really happening. And where I am here in the US, as COVID and Omicron continue to do their thing, everybody is doing telehealth. It's not even an option anymore to not have it. So everything involved with personalized medicine, personalized healthcare, trying to meet you where you are, that's going to be forced on us whether we like it or not. I know a lot of people who do really like it. I know a lot of people who really don't. They want to see their doctor in person and they are unable to for one reason or another, and they hate it, but that's what's happening. I think that as more remote monitoring comes out, because that's what I'm starting to see now, a lot of devices that are connected to the internet where you don't have to go to a doctor to get measurements taken or things like that, that's only going to accelerate and continue.
Wow, it's exciting. And can we expect a consolidation in the near future when the new acquisitions will be slowing down? Tobias, what do you think? Can you see any trends which shows that all the companies worth to buy are bought by a giant, and there is a slower pace, or you can't see such trends for the next few years?
Thank you for the question, Balint. I would say the main trend I see is that individual point solutions that used to be company by company, right, with one company doing online appointment booking, the next company doing teleconsultation, the next company doing digital therapeutics, and the next company doing patient remote monitoring, right? I see a big trend towards merging of those offerings, right, from point solutions to multi-product, multi-service offerings, and if we want to use that name, right, broader digital health ecosystems, right, in a similar way how we've seen them emerge in Asia already for a while, right, where some of the Asian digital health ecosystems have already more than 300 million end customers in their ecosystem and offering several of those services. So that's a bit the trend that I also see in Europe, where we have more of those platform ecosystem offerings emerging, right? Some of that will be a build out, right? But there will also be partnering and white labeling as well as acquisitions, right? The symptom checking is a good example where we've seen now a few B2B white label sort of business models in the market, right? Where then a company that has a great symptom checker medical chatbot would then be able to say, dear X, building an broader ecosystem, right? You can actually integrate our symptom checker medical chatbot into your ecosystem in a white label kind of way, instead of now spending a few years developing the symptom checker on your own, right? And of course, then there will be also some acquisitions along the way. Right, and then maybe just one additional thought for 2022 from a European perspective, right? I hope that that we see some of the things around patient remote monitoring, Rebecca, that you mentioned for 2021 in the US, right? Where of course then a lot has happened with the codes that are now out there, and you know, when we look at the published academic evidence, and if I just look at my home country, right? If one would implement patient remote monitoring and get the published academic evidence as a health system, right, the health system could save 3.3 billion euros per year, right? And not even talking about what I'm even more excited about, the patient outcomes that you can get, right? So in that sense, that is also my hope, that we are moving a bit more towards integrated care, patient remote monitoring combined with health coaching, etc.
Yeah, and I would just add to that you know, remote patient monitoring became like a $40 billion industry in the U.S. in the space of like 3 years. It's been incredible. What I see as sort of the next step there is, you know, what we have is sort of Bluetooth enabled devices set up in patient homes, and you know, outsourced RPM vendors similar to CCM vendors are sort of running that show on behalf of physician practices. What I would like to see is practices wholesale adopt this so that they can integrate into their patient care plans without sort of outsourcing so much of this, though, you know, who knows what that'll happen and whether that'll happen or not. And second, the increase in the ability to actually provide acute level care in the home. The US has a program, a waivered program that we expect to be extended called Hospital at Home, where they are taking patients who are either low acuity or sort of patients that need long-term monitoring, and they're actually recreating acute level care in the home using remote patient monitoring technology and other technology. And it is signaling to me sort of the dismantling of what we think of now as a hospital, right? Where we're going to start seeing a hospital or hospital system as a brand that you can access through a number of channels. That started to happen a little bit, but last year we heard the head of the Mayo Clinic really talk about his, you know, one of the most famous hospitals in the country, or hospital systems in the country, the CEO of Mayo Clinic talking about the Mayo Clinic as a platform as opposed to a building. That is a couple of years off, but we're going to start to see the growth in these hospital at home remote monitoring, sort of remote care models in a really significant way, so that, you know, not just the techies like me are noticing it.
Yeah, these are really game changer trends, what we are facing, and I'm really curious about your thoughts and your recommendations, especially for HealthTech startups and for enterprise managers. From your perspective as consultants, what can you recommend how to be successful in 2022? Tobias, would you mind to share your recommendations for startups and for enterprise managers, what to take care of and what to avoid?
Sure, happy to. I think if I come back to the digital health ecosystem topic, right? If I think or talk about it from the perspective of a health tech CEO who's building a company and scaling a company, right? Then the question could be not only sort of what am I building myself, right? But also how do we interact with the more than 50 digital health ecosystems that are currently being built across the world, right? And do I actually want to be an ecosystem orchestrator and be my own ecosystem, build my own platform? or am I also a participant in someone else's ecosystem, right? And that, of course, has massive implications in terms of positioning, also strategy, right? But can also have massive scaling implications, right? For example, if I would say I want to be an ecosystem participant in one of the large Asian ecosystems with more than 300 million end customers in the ecosystem, right? That, of course, can actually be quite positive from a scaling perspective. I think if I'm saying it from the perspective of maybe a digital health leader or a health tech leader in a pharma, medtech, health insurance or hospital chain, then I think the question is similar, right? Because then the question becomes sort of how am I digitizing, right? And some of the hospitals, right, you mentioned Rebecca, Mayo Clinic, right? They digitize very much in an expansion virtual care kind of way, right? Others are digitizing internal processes using robotic process automation. Others are digitizing their customer interaction interface, right? So there I would say, especially for pharma leaders, right, the question becomes how do they play in this, right? Because a lot of the digital health ecosystems that are currently being built are being built by health insurance conglomerates, provider conglomerates, a few medtech companies, even a few sort of mobile phone companies, right? Whereas pharma companies traditionally have been a step removed from patients, right? And therefore it becomes even more important than to ask the question how to partake in this whole ecosystem world. And I think the only other question and topic, you know, it's what we see in the health tech CEO roundtable is also that, you know, a lot of the health tech CEOs and founders over the last 2 years, they've been sort of firing on all cylinders, right? So also personal health and well-being becomes a big topic, right? What is the set of micro habits as a CEO or founder to actually sustainably perform well and be happy and healthy, right? So there's a lot in around what are the micro habits around sleep, nutrition, fitness, stress management, etc., and how to sort of pull that together to be a positive, inspirational leader.
Wow, wow. It's really great, especially hearing that personal advices as well. So through influencing the leaders, you expect a broader influence. Healthy leaders in health tech could be really effective. It's great to hear. And you mentioned that you could see two directions. One is becoming a platform. The other one is being part of an ecosystem and providing these services within that. So these two directions, what do you think, which is more viable direction for a startup, especially for a newer startup?
Well, I guess it has a lot to do, on the one hand, with the ambition that one has, on the one hand, right, and then also what are the segments in the health system that one wants to serve, and how to serve them in the best possible way, right? So often, you know, what can be helpful is then to look at some of the segments, right? If we say, for example, one segment that a company is very excited about is, I'm just making it up, health and well-being of young professionals, right? Then the question becomes, how do I create a customer journey that is convenient and even more convenient, and helping these people, right? Often what we look at is what is the return on engagement of the customers, right? Which is a lovely term that I borrow from Bettina Röll from the Melanoma Patient Network Europe, right? They often then say, if we are supposed as melanoma patients to use a digital platform, what is our return on engagement, right? We are not filling in sort of 15 pages of surveys every day without getting a lot of actual practical stuff, right? So in that sense, once one knows and has a better understanding what is the journey and what is the ambition that one has for their segment, then, you know, also the question of, do I partake in someone else's ecosystem or do I try to build my own platform, becomes easier, right? And then on the other hand, also there is a big geographic component, right? If I look at China, there are some ecosystems that have 300 million plus people already, right? I need to have a pretty good plan how to build an ecosystem in a geography like that if I have incumbents that are already at 300 million people, right? So in that sense, there's also then the geographic question that plays a big role.
Thanks for that highlights. And Josh, what you could recommend for health tech startups or enterprise managers to be successful in 2022?
Certainly, Balint. So as we've all three of us have talked about pretty extensively, we're seeing a lot of consolidation happening in the marketplace. And what that means to me is all of the smaller companies, the startups that are out there, if they want to participate in that and get bought, they're really going to have to protect themselves. They're going to have to make sure their innovations, their technologies, whatever it is they're doing that makes them unique is going to have to be protected, and they're going to be able to need to prove that they have that protection in all of their relevant markets, not just in their home market necessarily, but wherever it is that they think they're going to have significant sales. Otherwise, they're either not going to get what they're looking for from a potential partner, or they might not even be able to attract partners at all. And that seems to be the direction we're going. Everything is about partnering right now. The other thing I'm seeing is that supply chains, as we know, have been an issue, and they're going to continue to be an issue. I actually think they're going to get worse before they get better. So it's very important to make sure you lock up whatever supplies you need from whatever sources you can, and try to source locally as much as you can to try to minimize the impact on whatever it is you're doing.
Oh yeah, it's a really interesting trend, and maybe a few years ago we didn't expect this aspect, supply chain constraints as a real constraint, and we believe that that kind of global supply chains working well. So it's a really new result of this crisis. And Rebecca, what do you think about this supply chain situation?
I'm glad it's not my problem.
And can you see any trends in this? What can we expect? Will it be normalized shortly, or should we prepare for a longer survival?
Yeah, I wish I knew. It is 100% not my area. So I have nothing useful to share with the group on that. But I will say that in terms of how to be successful, right? Thoughts on how to be successful in 2022. I first will just parrot what Tobias said, which is, take care of yourself, take care of your people. Especially in digital health, the last 2 years has been brutal. It has been fast-paced. It has been draining, not just for members of the healthcare community, but for folks who are trying to build these solutions, especially folks that are super passionate about that. So taking care of yourself, resting, recharging, and being aware of sort of the trials and tribulations of the people on your team is super, super important. I would say, other than that, it's really first principles, right? Know your why. Let that guide your decisions. Surround yourself with smart and driven and, kind people who understand your problem and your industry. And then, the last thing I'll just say is, Josh and I work in law, so we're aware, but I think most digital health companies are also aware that healthcare itself is highly segmented and highly regulated. And so one of the things that I've seen set CEOs apart, founders apart, is to be able to hold the way things are, the structures of what exists today, and the way and the way things could be outside of those constraints at the same time, and use that to make creative but practical, sort of grounded in reality decisions. That I think is sort of a good combination for success.
Thanks, Rebecca, and it's really interesting that you mentioned that during the past 2 years, the speed of this world become extremely fast. And what you expect for the next 1-2 years? Will this pace increase, or it will become a moderate speed?
I think as long as there's so much money out here, I think we're going to start to, we're going to see people continue to found these companies. It's still, super frothy. There's a lot of VC interest in these companies. When that starts to moderate itself, I think we're going to start to see a pullback. But there are still a number of problems to solve. For instance, most telehealth solutions out there right now are primarily based in the primary care model. We haven't started to see sort of what can be done in the specialty world. We haven't started to see what it's going to look like to be able to access a lot of care from the home. So I think we'll stop seeing repeats of existing solutions out there, and we're going to start, and that's going to push people to search for new problems. But now, right now, so far, it is absolutely not slowing down. We're getting, we're still experiencing a big influx of folks asking for our help, at least.
Yes, so we should prepare for that extreme speed. And Tobias, what you can recommend how to be successful?
I think it's Josh's turn, right? I said it already.
Okay.
Sorry, it's Josh's turn. We did it. Tobias, we're done, man.
Yes.
You've gotten all the advice that I have.
Yes, and Josh, what you mentioned, it's really interesting for me that you highlighted that it's important now to protect the innovations, and why you think that innovators, both on the startup side and on the enterprise side, should protect their innovation even more than they did it last year?
To me, it's all an element of risk, right? We're all risk averse right now, especially big companies, big healthcare companies, health tech companies. They all have to defend their decisions. They are under increasing pressure to have profits go up, have debits go down. And really the only way to do that, if you're in the game, which they are, of outsourcing R&D essentially, is to only acquire those products where they have a better chance of being able to keep knockoffs off the market. Even with supply chain issues being out there, counterfeiting has gone up as well. And it's much easier in my mind to get a gray market product or a black market product than it ever used to be. I think that if you're not protecting yourself, number one, you're never going to be able to find a partner as on the smaller side or the startup side. Number two, on the big company side, they're increasingly risk averse. And they're not going to do anything where they don't see an outcome that's in their favor. That's where I think the protection is as important, if not more important than ever before.
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for this highlight. Protecting the innovation is equally important than creating that innovation itself. And now I would like to open the floor for the questions, and please use this hand icon so I can call you and your question to the panel. Okay, Matthew, could you ask your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just wondering what the panel kind of consider in terms of the looking at patient outcomes, quality of care, quality of service. To what extent that kind of becomes kind of a key issue, given kind of the increasing kind of use of acquisitions and things like that. So, to see sort of where that kind of differentiates a product, particularly when you're looking at becoming an acquisition target or something like that.
Rebecca, what's your thoughts on that?
So, Matthew, I want to make sure I understand the question. So do you mean is the ability for a company to demonstrate increase in quality or positive patient outcomes going to be important for acquisition decisions?
Yeah, with obviously the market, given the increase that we've seen over the past couple of years, to what extent does that become kind of a differentiator that can potentially, improve your chances of acquisition and success?
Yes. Yeah. So the answer is not no, right? I mean, the answer is if you can demonstrate better patient outcomes, you have a better story to tell potential customers, and therefore a higher chance of success in acquiring those customers who are paying, and that's going to increase your value. And that's what people want to buy value. I think in particular, in the next couple of years, what we've seen from the regulators that set reimbursement policy, at least in the US, that they're not going to make decisions to expand industries and relax regulations until they're satisfied that there are positive patient outcomes out of some of these technologies. So I do think that there's a benefit to setting up your well, one, it's the right thing, right? We all want to build companies that make people better. That's why we're in healthcare. Two, it will absolutely increase your value because more and more the buyers are getting savvy about whether they're going to purchase your services, and they're asking for more information about them. And we're moving toward value-based models now. So if your product doesn't create better outcomes or lower costs, and your buyer wants to enter into a value-based arrangement, you're sort of out of luck. So that's number two. But number three, the meta impact of producing studies that show that there are benefits to be had for these digital technologies is that the industry at large will grow, and the industry at large will be better, and better recognized by the folks who sort of control the money and control how difficult they make it for you to be successful.
Thanks, Rebecca, for the detailed answer. It was an important question. And let's continue with Joab's question. Joab, could you share your question with the panel?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, before many other people were present, there's a catch, maybe more than one catch. I sense a bit of technology optimism, as I said. And you see tons of reports like the CB Insights about big pharma entering healthcare. That I sent to Tobias the other day is about the 10 trends of Philips, blah, blah, and so on and so forth. Most of the time, I think it is not 2022, but 2023 or 2024 what we're talking about. Companies are positioning themselves, but they first have to get away with a tremendous backlog caused by the COVID pandemic, because they are postponing the cancer operations, the hip operations, and what have you. So they have to catch up first. The second thing is that, as Rebecca already said, in Europe, maybe in the US, but at least in Europe, there's a very regulated and very classical setup of hospitals and caregivers. So they are not very keen to adopt new technologies, specifically in these current circumstances. So when I started out an hour ago, or 3/4 of an hour ago, how the hell do we together, and particularly the healthcare, the health tech suppliers, providers, the leaders in healthcare, how do they consider to understand, transform, and engage the healthcare system, which is so classic? And I mean the total system.
Yes. Thank you, Joab, for these highlights. And Tobias, what's your reflection on that point?
Well, I think there is and thank you for that, Joe. Good to see you again. There is a lot of truth in that, right? When we look at digital health, sort of overall, right, we've got 25-ish categories if we don't go too granular, right? And if I look at Europe, the last 2-3 years, there was a lot of focus on telemedicine and digital therapeutics, which are just 2 out of 25, right? And with patient remote monitoring, many European countries are sort of pretty much at the beginning, right? Often there are no reimbursement codes in place. My home country, right? We are now grappling with 2 of the most fundamental enablers of digital health, the electronic patient record, and adding useful use cases to it instead of just bare minimum, as well as e-prescriptions, right? Which is sort of in very early pilot phase. And if I just look at this, right, these 2 are enablers for 14 other digital health categories overall, right? So if I use the analogy of building a house, right, many of the European countries where I'm usually working in, we are pretty much still at building the basement with electronic patient records and e-prescriptions, right? And then some of the more advanced countries, if I can say Denmark here as an example, right? They've been thinking more about the interior design of the house and thinking about how everything comes together, right? And I think that will be one of the big tasks from a 2030 kind of perspective even, right? How do we bring the different pieces together, right? Number one, the traditional interventions that we've had for many decades, right? Medications, implants, etc. Then number 2, our 25 new digital health categories, from online appointment booking to online pharmacy. Then number 3, the whole genomics and precision medicine piece. And then number 4, the whole health and well-being stuff around, keeping people happy and healthy with, sleep, nutrition, fitness, stress management, right? And I see in very few health systems that this is being thought through, right? How these 4 things are coming together.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias. And last but not least, I would like to ask John to share your question to the panel. We have a really short time left from this section, but we would be happy to answer your question, John.
I'm going to preface everything by kind of describing what we're doing now. We're actually selling our digital health medical device by going to opioid use disorder clinics. And the way we're doing it is by selling the ability to raise money by using those remote monitoring codes. 2019, 2020, the Medicare has actually put in remote monitoring codes. So we're using those codes to give OUD clinics a way to use our product and actually earn revenue. So number one, there's a financial way to do this. Number 2, on the supply chain, we went to Mexico first, not China, because we can put our products together faster, and the shipping costs and the import tax costs is fine. Long story short, the next question is, once we have a system in place, and I think we're a startup, we're FDA Class 1 registered, we have PE funding, how can we make this whole combination more acceptable to healthcare systems? Because they're really, seriously, the science doesn't matter. It's the investment that matters the most. And we're presenting a reasonable and I think positive investment situation for healthcare entities to use it. But how do we improve the re-education process to let them know that we have something that is workable for their system, for their main goal of increasing revenue, decreasing their operative expenses?
Thanks, John. And Josh, what's your reflection on that?
Sorry?
I asked Joshua to answer your question with his opinion.
Well, I actually really applaud John for going to Mexico to solve supply chain issues. I think we need to see more innovation, more innovative thinking like that to resolve those sorts of issues. I think that's absolutely fabulous. And the idea that you can do more things closer to home, that's what all companies should be looking to do, rather than where is necessarily something the cheapest or where do I think I've done it before, I can do it again, we need to be looking to have more innovative solutions. So absolutely, John, that's fabulous.
Thanks, Joshua, for your reflection, and thank you, everybody, for all of your questions and for this awesome discussion. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Josh.